Hello and welcome back to the channel, and this is the full extended breakdown of the Hogwarts Legacy State of Play trailer. Now, quick disclosure, this is actually all of my previous videos I put into one long video for everybody who would prefer to watch it in that way. However, if you have watched any of my other videos, you may want to just go back and watch these sections that you haven't watched. There are 4 sections in this video, and they are as follows. The first section is the initial breakdown from my first viewing of the trailer. The second section is the analysis of the map and locations in the game. The third section is the analysis of the gameplay and also the combat features, and the fourth section of this game is the analysis of the characters and also the storyline. If you haven't watched any of those videos, then continue watching this one because it is all of them in one go. As always, thank you for watching. If you do like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to hit that like button. It really does help me out. But without further ado, let's get into the full breakdown. So the trailer starts, as all good trailers should, with a nice open shot of Hogwarts Castle, and you see our character walking over to this cliff edge and the castle in the background. The very familiar music as the title cards roll is that of Hedwig's theme, but it is very much a darker version of it, and the opening shots of this trailer seem to reflect that, and they seem to be filled with all sorts of danger that our character is going to be getting in throughout this game. The first shot is our character with one of our companions, and that is Poppy Sweeting from Hufflepuff. We seem to be in the Forbidden Forest somewhere, and there is centaurs running all around us. We then see our character with the Gryffindor companion Natsai Onai, and they appear to be in either Hogsmeade or one of the surrounding villages, and a giant troll seems to bust through the front of this building. Notice that the red eyes on the troll is potentially that this creature has been corrupted, as is mentioned later in the trailer. We then see another close-up with Poppy and our character being confronted by a dragon. The glow in its throat looks incredible, as do most of the things in this trailer. And we are then finally greeted with a scene of our character in what looks to be some sort of canyon-type terrain, and they are being approached by a Graphorn. So the first scene of this trailer seems to be giving us some hints as to what the main storyline of this trailer is going to be. It is going to be based around the Goblin Rebellions and also some dark wizards that are supporting that. And it's also based around the magical power that your character has to be able to unlock some of the enchantments around the castle. Our first shot shows our character standing in front of Hogwarts, and I cannot stress enough how perfect they have made this castle feel. It is absolutely gorgeous, and they have actually captured the real living element of the castle itself, and I cannot wait to explore it further when I play the game. We then see some shots with our character and Professor Fig, where they appear to be searching some secret locations near the Hogwarts area, and our character is demonstrating some of the power that he has to be able to unlock the secrets around there. He touches this mirror and it seems to dissolve away and show a wall behind it. And they are then seen inside this room with 4 more mirror type doorways. Maybe as your character gets stronger, he can unlock each individual one of them, which would give you some sort of dungeon area to explore and unlock items within. We then see a shot of 3 goblins. I'm not entirely sure where they are. I did see the banner at the top, but I can't make out exactly what the symbol on it is. This is the main antagonist for the storyline from what the trailer seems to portray, and this is Ranrock. He is the goblin that is leading the rebellion at this time. We will see more of him as the trailer goes on. The other shot we get in this sequence is our character walking down into what looks like the main entrance hall area. There are staircases going off in all directions, some leading down to the dungeons and some leading up into the higher levels of the castle. On the ceiling there is banners displaying all of the houses and also the Hogwarts crest itself. The next section of this trailer is based around your character creation and what you'll be doing at the start of your journey when you arrive at Hogwarts. Taking a look at the character creation, it looks as though you will have lots of customization. You'll be able to change the character's face shape. You will also be able to adjust the scars and facial features. You can change the hairstyle and colour and also your skin tone. And later in the trailer, it also looks as though you can change your clothing quite regularly. Of course, our character is going to, first of all, go through the sorting ceremony, and again, it looks like he is the only student to be going through this at this time, which makes me suggest that perhaps you're not starting at the same time within the year as the students, let alone starting in the first year. You are starting later in the year itself. It's interesting to note that the cloak that your student is wearing has just a logo with a H where the house badge goes before he is sorted, and later, obviously, when we see him in different houses, the letter changes to that symbol of the house that you have been chosen into. We then get some amazing shots of the common rooms. We see the bedchamber in Gryffindor. We also then get to see the Ravenclaw common room. It looks very true to what I imagine it would be from the books. You can see the blue and the blonde colouring on the floor, and also as it progresses you can see the stars on the ceiling. It then cuts into the Slytherin common room. It seems rather spacious, and the green light flowing through the room is because it lies underneath the Great Lake. We then see the Gryffindor common room. It is full of tapestries and looks very cosy. They have done a perfect job of making this feel like a lived-in location, with little details such as this rug being wrinkled from where somebody has walked across it. We then finally get to see a perfect adaptation of the Hufflepuff common room. It gives me Hobbit vibes, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. I personally am a Ravenclaw, but I've considered picking Hufflepuff just to be able to explore their common room because we never actually venture into it throughout the Harry Potter stories. We then see our character conversing with Natsai in what appears to be the Charms classroom. On the wall behind them there are several spells written down. These are Relatio, which is a revulsion jinx which causes anything holding on to you to release its grip. Avis, the bird conjuring spell. Colliportus, which is the locking spell, which is the opposite to Alohomora, which we see lower down. Petrificus Totalis, which is the body bind curse. Protego Horribilis, which is a stronger version of the standard shield charm to protect yourself from stronger jinxes and curses. We then see Nox and Lumos, which ignites your wand and turns off the light at the end of your wand. Rictum Semper is below that, which is the tickling charm. And then below Alohomora, we have Lacanum Inflammare, which is what Hermione uses in the Harry Potter films to set Snape's cloak on fire. We have Relatio again, and next to this we have Glissio, which is what causes a staircase to become smooth like a slide. I'm hoping that because these spells are on the wall, we will have some use for them throughout the whole game. Perhaps you can help yourself get around quicker by using Glissio, or obviously in combat, Petrificus Totalis and the Protego charms will be very useful, and hopefully Alohomora will allow you to explore some hidden locations. The next segment of the trailer is based around what lessons you're going to be doing while at Hogwarts. It only goes into a few of them, and it does say there are more, but the ones that it goes into are so intriguing. Starts off within one of the greenhouses, and you see the Herbology teacher introducing your character to the class. This must be on one of your first days. I really like the design of this character, but with the red hair I am wondering whether she is a Pruitt and is somehow related to the Weasley. We then get a shot within the Charms classroom, and the new Charms teacher looks incredible. He seems really charismatic and I love the design of him. Around the room there is some more shots of the incantations that we see from the last shot, and some more spells that I have noticed around the area are as follows. Immobilus, which is the freezing charm. Again, this can be used in combat. Mobile Corpus is used to suspend a body in the air and move it around. The Periculum spell, which we see the Hogwarts champions use in the maze, and it is used to send red sparks up into the air. We see Reparo, which is obviously the charm to repair objects that are broken. There is Mobiliarbus, used to move wooden objects around. Episci, which we see Luna use on Harry's nose and is used to heal minor wounds. Legilimens, which is used to infiltrate somebody else's mind. Peritotum Locomotor, which we see McGonagall use in the films to bring inanimate objects to life. Turgio, which is to siphon away liquids. And finally, we see Expecto Patronum, which is used to cast a Patronus to protect against Dementors. We then see our characters in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. This is the first time that we see your Slytherin companion, Sebastian Sallow, and you engage in a duel with him. I would imagine this is going to be used to introduce you to the combat in the game. It would appear that Sebastian is going to be your rival in this game, but it doesn't appear to be a Draco and Harry rivalry. You seem to be friends, but you seem to push each other to be better. Very similar to that of the Pokemon games where you've got a rival in those. We then see our character in the potions classroom. I'm excited to see how they're going to introduce potions into the game. We see later on that they can be used to make your spells powerful or make you more immune to spell damage and that type of thing. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this lesson. Again, this teacher in potions gives me Mad-Eye Moody vibes, and I don't know why, but I hope that he is some relative of Mad-Eye Moody. The next sequence is based around exploration of the castle, and every single shot in this sequence is perfection. They have gone into so much detail to make this world feel alive. We start off with a shot of the grounds of Hogwarts, and there are students walking around and enjoying the sunshine. We then see one of the interior staircases, which shows all the many routes off throughout the castle. The dev team have said they've gone into great detail to ensure that all the paths lead to different locations and you can explore through every single one of them. We then see our character walking down the 7th floor corridor with the portrait of the fat lady ahead of us. You can also see in this trailer that all of the other portraits are moving. This next shot is very intriguing. I do not know where this could be. There is some things in the background that give me some sort of Gringotts vibe. However, I believe this building is likely a goblin-made building similar to that of Gringotts, but somewhere different. Obviously, this story centres around the Goblin Rebellion, so it is likely to be some other location that the goblins are going to be. Our character uses the Accio Charm, which is the summoning charm, to pull this platform in front of him towards him, and we then see him use the charm again to ring the door knocker at the top of this picture frame. The door knocker then acts as a door knocker should, and it causes the door within the photo to come front and centre and open up, revealing a secret passageway behind it. I hope there are many more features like this throughout the game where you can find hidden details just by doing a specific spell on an inanimate object. We then see a location that I've always wanted to witness, but we never got to in the movies, and that is the kitchen location. You can see the house elves working away, preparing the feasts for the students. I believe this one is going to be stood on one of the house tables where the food is projected through to the Great Hall above. And the final location we see in this section is the Prefix Bathroom that Harry visits in the Goblet of Fire when he figures out the egg's clue. You can see the mermaid portrait on the wall that gives him the clue as to what the noise coming out of the egg is. The next section of the trailer is about the side characters and side quests that we get to partake on during our journey. They confirm that it's set in the 1800s and that we will not be seeing many of the people that we know from the Harry Potter series. We get another shot of the Slytherin common room, a location that we have been to before, and then we see a familiar face, and that is of course Nearly Headless Nick. He is once again talking about the Headless Hunt, and it appears that you are trying to help him get into the Headless Hunt. Unfortunately, I think you're going to be unsuccessful. We then see what looks to be History of Magic. I thought this might be in the game, and hopefully it gives us some insight and potentially gives us some clues as to some of the hidden things that we can find. we see Professor Binns walking around the classroom, already in his ghost form, so he has already died, and all of the students look very bored. We then see some of these side quests, and it looks like there's going to be collectibles as well as some mini games dotted around the map that will help us develop our skills and level up our character. Finally, we get our first look at the Quidditch Stadium, which looks incredible, and our character on a broom. We see later on in the trailer that flying is part of this game. The next section of the trailer goes into more detail about what the story of this game is going to be. It's obviously based around the Goblin Rebellions, and we get an introduction properly to the main antagonist of the story. This sequence starts off with our character walking through a tunnel with what looks like potentially Devil's Snare crawling down the walls. Our character uses Lumos, which ignites his wand and causes the Devil's Snare to back up. We know from the Harry Potter books that Devil's Snare does not like sunlight. We then see him in this gigantic chamber, which reminds me of something very similar to the Chamber of Secrets, and there is a giant statue inside it of this bearded person. For some reason I get Poseidon vibes, but I do not know who this character is going to be or where it is going to be located. There seems to be lots of hidden dungeons throughout this trailer, so potentially it is just areas that your character can access because of the powers that he has. We get this shot which is potentially further into the dungeon with the giant statue, and the platform seems to extend towards our character. I would suggest this is going to be some sort of boss fight, with the creature knelt down in the middle of the platform going to be something you're going to have to defeat to progress. We then get our first proper introduction to Professor Fig. Again, I think this is going to be a looping-like character who is going to help us through our journey. He's going to be very intrigued about our character's powers, and is also going to be looking into the Goblin Rebellion. We see him here attacking Ranrock, the Goblin leader, and it appears like Ranrock seems to simply absorb the magic and redirect it back at him. We know that goblins want to use wands to channel their magic, but it appears that he is very strong without a wand himself anyway. Very interesting to see our character going up against a non-wizard in this series. Obviously, throughout the Harry Potter series, we have a Dark Wizard, and also now the Fantastic Beasts series, based in around Grindelwald, it is also a Dark Wizard, so this is a nice, fresh take on a villain within a series. We then hear Sebastian mention about Ranrock's supporters, and we see what appears to be the chamber that our character was in earlier in the trailer, which to me suggests that this is going to be some sort of goblin stronghold. We then get our first proper glimpse at combat, and this is followed by a cutscene with Ranrock talking to a dark wizard in Hogsmeade who was hired to kidnap you. Ranrock seems to understand the power that you have and seems to want you for that, and it would appear he has hired this dark wizard to capture you. I believe this is going to take place after some sort of a boss battle, because you have just defeated the distraction that they were talking about. The next section of the trailer seems to be based around the abilities and magic that you can use throughout the game. It starts off with our character in company of Professor Fig, and Professor Fig uses the Rebellio Charm to repair the bridge leading to this tower. It would appear they're going to explore some ruins and potentially have your character use his hidden magic. After that, we get several shots of the actual mechanics of the combat in this game, and it looks really intriguing. We initially see this scene with your character fighting what looks to be a dark wizard, and the beams of their spells seem to conjoin. Very reminiscent of that from the Harry Potter series. We then see our character fighting this troll, and it appears that our character uses 2 stunning charms on him, which don't have much effect. He then uses Immobilus, the freezing charm, and it seems to freeze the troll in position, but only for a short time. We then see our character fighting several dark wizards. In this scene, you can see that the Dark Wizards have the ability to block spells and even send them flying away. This character here even appears to be able to send a spell directly back at us. Also of note in here and in the next scene, there is random objects throughout the game, which appears if you press R1 on the PlayStation, you can use the Pugno charm, which will send them flying in the direction of an enemy. In the next shot, we see our character get hit with the Petrificus Totalis charm, and we see his body lock into position. This will obviously leave you open to attacks and will want to be avoided. The other spells that I can see us use throughout this trailer are as follows. We appear to be using the Stupefy Stunning Charm. Also, we seem to use the Accio Charm on enemies, and it brings them towards us and immobilizes them in the air for a second. Incendio seems to be used a lot, and Diffindo seems to be used to fire enemies into the ground. We also see that you can combine a lot of attacks. Our character seems to suspend people in the air with the Accio Charm and then use several charms against them while they're in the air. Another thing of note is that enemies do seem to have certain weaknesses that you will have to adapt your playstyle towards. In this scene, it looks like our character is fighting Inferi and he is using the Incendio Charm against them. Inferi do not like anything that is light or warm, so the Incendio Charm is a perfect charm to use against them. We then see our character fighting what looks to be statues. They probably have been brought to life using the Peritotum Locomotor Charm, and in this scene he uses the Expelliarmus Charm to remove the sword from them, followed by a Pugno to fire the sword straight back into them. He also appears to use some sort of apparition as a dash move, potentially to get out of the way of attacks or to move in for an attack against an enemy. In this scene we also see that we have finishers, and it seems to be that our character is using the Incendio Charm several times to fire this character into the floor repeatedly. And finally we get a glimpse of our hidden magic, and it seems to call down a bolt of lightning from the sky to attack this enemy. The lighting effects on this are absolutely phenomenal. The main thing of note from this scene is as our character gets stronger and uses combination attacks, they seem to have varying effects. When our character uses Accio on this enemy to bring him closer to him, he then uses Incendio. I would imagine that he is now more powerful than he was at the beginning of the game, and it causes a ring of fire to burst out underneath him, which is an area of effect attack and damages all enemies around him. The sequence continues to show how much more powerful our character is at this point in the game. He easily blocks this attack from the goblin before making short work of him with a few combination spells. It finishes off with what looks to be a cutscene back in the Defences Against the Dark Arts room, and our character is fighting a fellow Gryffindor and nearly causes the skull of this dragon to fall on top of him before being saved by the Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher. The next section gives us a more in-depth look at the skill tree for our character. We can see 3 confirmed titles for potential skill tree progression categories, and the first one is the Room of Requirement. This is obviously going to allow you to create more powerful potions or look after more dangerous creatures within the Room of Requirement. We will see more on that later on in the trailer. The next section is called Stealth, and it is based around a stealth mechanic. I'm really intrigued by the addition to this in the game. And the next section that we get confirmed is Core, and this is going to be talents to improve your overall effectiveness. I would imagine this is going to be ways to improve your spells or your defensive mechanism. The last 2, we do not see exactly what they are, but potentially this is going to be your perception of hidden things within the world, or the special abilities that your character alone can use. The idea of perception comes from the fact there is definitely collectibles around the world, and maybe as you level it up you will be able to see more of them as we do here. And we then get a look at this stealth gameplay, and I'm really intrigued by this. Your character seems to cast a disillusionment charm on himself before approaching the enemy ahead. He then uses a Prefix Totalis on him and his fellow next to him before accioing the character up on the balcony towards him and incapacitating him with what looks like a stunning charm. Just for note, as soon as this character is incapacitated, the loot button appears, which means that you can definitely loot downed bodies. It'd be interesting to see what you can get from loot. I would imagine there's going to be some wizarding money and potentially some healables as well. Talking of looting, you can see our character here looting a chest and also going about the Hogwarts castle and finding potion ingredients. These will obviously be used in the Room of Requirements to make more powerful potion that can help you when fighting enemies. We then get a look at this loom, which appears to improve your inventory. You can adapt the appearance of the items that you are wearing, and you can also apply upgrades and traits to your clothing. I would imagine the upgrades are going to be similar to defensive upgrades, which would mean you're more resistant to damage or potentially you're better at stealth, and I would imagine that the traits you add will potentially cause your spells to do different things, or potentially may cause you to have some sort of buff when you're fighting. So you can have a cloak that blocks 1 in 5 spells that are fired at you. And the next section is an in-depth look at some of the lessons that we get to partake in during our time at Hogwarts. It starts off with some potions gameplay and shows you how you're going to interact with potion ingredients in the game. Potions are then shown to be used to apply buffs to your character. This potion appears to make our character's skin turn into stone, which I would imagine would increase the defensive attributes, and it also mentions that you could use some potions to increase the power of your spells. It'd be interesting to see how many potions they've got. Potentially some can be used for exploration as well, such as a strengthening solution to move heavy objects out of the way. We then also see Herbology put into play during fight scenes within the game, and you can use certain plants to confuse and attack your enemies. We even get to see a mandrake being used. It would appear that this is probably a baby mandrake, as these characters don't drop dead instantly but just seem to be knocked out. And then one of the most intriguing sections of this game is the Fantastic Beasts section. We see a adorable Niffler, and the colours seem to be light blue, which we have never seen before. Don't know if this is just natural Niffler colouring, or if potentially we can collect pets and choose their colouring and customise them ourselves. The more you level up your character in the beast training, the more you will be able to interact with larger and more dangerous beasts. I love the shots we get of this grapple, and when you use a spell to massage its stomach, you can see its leg twitching in a very dog-like fashion. And finally, the scene that I specifically was waiting for, and that is the fact that you get flying lessons. Unfortunately, throughout this gameplay we haven't confirmed if Quidditch is in the game, but you can definitely use a broom to explore the surrounding area, and it does look like it is going to be a massive location. We then see that our companions through this game can come with us on missions. I'm wondering if you can choose them or if they are automatically selected for you. We also get some insight into the backstory. Natsai is a typical Gryffindor and is brave and an adventurer, and she is looking to sort out some injustice that she sees. It does not go into any more detail as to what this is. Poppy Sweeting is one of my favourite looking characters in this game. She seems to be quite an awkward character and gives me very much Newt Scamander vibes. It's said that she gets on better with animals than she does with humans. And the most intriguing of all is Sebastian's character. It mentions that his family has a dark secret and he is trying to cure some sort of curse. I'm wondering if this is similar to the blood curse that we see of Nagini in the Fantastic Beasts trailer, or something new that we have not yet seen. I'm very intrigued to see their stories play out as we play through this game. And one more very exciting thing to mention from this sequence is we get a look of Peeves, the poltergeist, who is still in the school during this time period and causing havoc for the students. It would appear that he's probably done something very loud to highlight to the librarian that Sebastian is in the restricted section. In the next section of this trailer, we get introduced to the Room of Requirements, and I love this addition to the game. When it first came up, I was very skeptical, but when I see what they use it for, I think it's ingenious. Your character is obviously late to the party and is starting in his 5th year, so he is behind other students. The Room of Requirements seems to be a place where you can practice your wizarding skills in your spare time and try to catch up with the learning of your fellow student. In this location, you appear to be able to modify your clothing, brew potions, and also grow different types of plants. It appears like everything inside the Room of Requirements is customizable, so it'd be nice to see the many versions of this room. This is where you're going to create the potions and the plants that you use in combat. We get a glimpse of some of them in this scene. The first one we see is the Chinese Chomping Cabbage. It's described as a ferocious plant that looks similar to an ordinary cabbage, but supports a terrifying set of teeth. When it's released, it will be able to clamp its jaws onto any enemy that it sees around it. This is potentially the plants that we see earlier in the trailer. We then also see the venomous tentacular description, and this is a plant that is highly venomous and attacks prey with creeping and spiked vines. It should only be handled by experienced herbologists, which to me says you will need to level up before being able to unlock this plant. And it also shows you the growth time that is required to make them, which means there is going to be some sort of time period that you would need to wait before you can actually use the plants that you grow. We do get a very short clip of the room requirements as we know it from the Harry Potter series, with the piles of furniture and items that have been hidden. Perhaps the most intriguing section of the room requirements is this area with inside this greenhouse type building, where you basically have your own farm to raise and care for magical creatures. It looks as though the resource that you use to pay for all the items in here is a Moonstone, and I would imagine this is going to be collected throughout the area of Hogwarts. This again is fully customizable, and you see our character placing a cottage. We also get the look of what appears to be a Kneasel. In the next sequence of this trailer, we get a look at the extended map of the game, and it's not just Hogwarts. We see our character initially flying on the back of a hippogriff around the surrounding countryside of Hogwarts with a dragon in the sky with us. Our character then ventures into Hogsmeade, and we see him attending several different shops. Now, this first shop appears to be a bookshop, and I would suggest that potentially this is going to be Tomes and Scrolls, which is a specialist bookshop located in Hogwarts. It was established in 1768, so it is definitely around in this time. In the next scene, we see your character attending Pippin's Potions. This is an apothecary that was established in 1753. It sells potions for all ailments. There was also a branch in Diagon Alley. This is confirmed in the trailer, as when the shop menu opens up, it says Pippin's at the top. And finally, we get a look at this character customization shop, which I would imagine is going to be Gladrad's Wizard Wear, and this is where you can buy several different outfits for your character. Our character then has a confrontation with the Dark Wizard that we see earlier, and presuming that this is still in Hogsmeade, we can see the Hogsmeade branch of Ollivanders behind our character in this scene. This scene is then followed by some more shots of combat against the Dark Wizards. We are then treated to a time-lapse of Hogwarts and our character walking down a path in the grounds, and we see what it looks like at different times of the year and different weather situations. I believe they've just put this in to show how gorgeous this game actually is. Another intriguing part of this section is the fact that there are little hamlets other than Hogsmeade in the local area, and these have their own little shops that you can explore. I think from a gameplay perspective, these are probably put in so that you don't have to travel all the way to Hogsmeade to buy certain potions or clothing upgrades, and you could potentially get them dotted over the map in different locations. But it says that all of the characters at these locations have their own stories and potentially side missions, so it'd be really interesting to see what these are. We then see some more hints of potential side missions within the game. It mentions that we can look for secrets that Merlin created during his time at Hogwarts. I would imagine that this is going to be leading you to some sort of artifact that Merlin has left there that you can only gain by completing all of his missions. And it also mentions about the creatures in the surrounding area of Hogwarts which have been corrupted by some unknown magic. I would imagine again this is going to be some separate storyline that you can follow to understand what is corrupting these creatures and potentially help cure them. There's also further elements of the Room of Requirement mechanics, and it says that certain creatures are in danger of being poached, and you can potentially capture these creatures just like Pokemon and then take them to the Room of Requirements and help them back to health. Again, I would imagine the higher the level your character is, the more dangerous creatures you will be able to see. We then have a shot which is definitely within the depths of Gringotts itself. itself. It'd be interesting to see how Gringotts works in this time frame, because obviously it is potentially during the Goblin Rebellion, and it means that there would potentially be tensions between wizards and goblins. It's interesting to see we get to explore these areas that are so far away from Hogwarts. We then get some more glimpses of potential dungeons that we can explore. I believe these are going to be used in the game to allow us to unlock certain magics and also potentially to unlock certain magical items. And the one shot that literally left me speechless in this movie is when they said to be careful because you could lead down a dark path, and your character then uses the killing curse, Avada Kedavra, on what I believe to be a goblin, as you can see his axe flying into the air above him. Your character is then walking very ominously towards this door with water filling up around him, and he does not seem to pay any notice to it. We then get a montage of clips that just explain some further gameplay mechanics. We see us making an ally of this goblin in what is definitely going to be the Hogshead, as you can tell from the symbol on the wall behind him. We get another shot of our character on the back of a hippogriff flying over what appears to be a dragon skeleton. We get another shot of Professor Fig. I'm not entirely sure where he is at this time, but he appears to be reading some sort of magical book which is expelling a magic around the room. We get some more different enemies which look very similar to the statues we saw earlier, and a hidden door appearing in front of our character. We get a nice shot of our character framed with the full moon behind him, followed by a shot of the dragon that we saw in the trailer earlier and in the previous trailers. The final shot of this trailer is us flying around Hogwarts with the sun going down in the distance on the back of a hippogriff, and it just gives me chills. And finally, we get the crescendo of the Harry Potter music, followed by the title screen and a release date, which is Holiday 2022. I cannot wait for this game. So we get several shots of the outside of the castle, and from these shots we can actually map most of the outer area of the castle. And I'm going to be doing it from this scene here. So the initial first shot that we get of our character, you can see a path behind us which leads further out into the grounds. The camera then pans around and we get a nice wide shot of the castle. If you look at this scene here, to the right hand side, as our character walks across, you can see the faint outline of the Quidditch pitch, and then further beyond that on the hill you get a nice look at the owlry. Also in the very far distance to the right hand side we see the wooden bridge, and then to the left hand side of the castle you see the silhouetted outline of the greenhouses. In front of us is the large courtyard that we do see later on in the trailer. We then transverse into a better shot of most of these locations, and you can see them in a lot more detail. As you can see, there is a fortification wall and a gatehouse that goes around the outside of this main courtyard area. The entrance through the gatehouse then leads out towards the Quidditch pitch that we saw in the initial scene. There is an entrance to the main castle here with 3 long windows above it. And then, as I said, to the left of the screen, you can see the greenhouses, which is where some of our lessons take place. And then finally, in the far distance on the left from this angle, you can then also see the other courtyard that we get in this trailer that leads directly into the Great Hall. Also, I believe this tower is going to be the Astronomy Tower, as you can see what looks to be a telescope sticking out of it. So this is likely to be where our astronomy lessons are going to be if they do take place in the game. We then get a shot and our character is now stood on this ledge here, just directly below the owlry, as you can see the wooden bridge to the right. Directly in front of our character is the clock tower entrance and the clock tower courtyard. And again, to the left hand upper side, you can see the astronomy tower with the telescopes inside it. We get a glimpse inside the clock tower in this scene here, where our character is with one of our companions fighting some other students. You can see the swinging pendulum of the clock just to the top of the scene. The next scene we get is inside the castle, and I have been unable to place this at this time. Initially, I thought this door was going to lead out into the main courtyard that we see, and the reason for that is the 3 windows above it. However, looking at it from the outside, it does not make sense from the other features that we see. Either side of the door there appears to be 2 windows that are not present on the outside. Also, there appears to be windows up the stairs ahead of us, and these windows would not be present as this building doesn't stick out in any way. I've searched through the whole trailer to try and find out exactly where this is going to be, but I cannot locate it, so my only suggestion is that potentially it is to the backside of the castle that we do not get to see, or it is possibly up to one of the inner courtyards. Just for noting, this is definitely inside Hogwarts, as you can see the Hogwarts crest on the banners above, and also some of the house colours. There's also multiple directions that our character can go off. There is a staircase directly ahead of us. There's also a staircase that leads up to the left hand side, and also a staircase that leads down to the right. So this is a courtyard to the far rear that we saw from the initial shot, and these doors, I believe, directly go into the entrance hall outside of the Great Hall itself. This shot of the Great Hall is very similar to the shot we got in the original trailer, and you can see some of the emblems of the houses on the pillars around the Great Hall. To the right you see the Lion of Gryffindor, and to the left you see the Eagle of Ravenclaw. One thing to note is the staff table appears to have changed slightly and is now in a crescent shape with all of the teachers sat around it. Also, the stool is out for the sorting, and I believe this is just prior to your character being sorted into its house. Again, I do find it strange that none of the first years are in this location. They probably have already been sorted and you have been left till last, as you are a late starter. Also, in this scene we get a nice look at the sorting hat. The next 3 shots we get are of the Hogwarts common rooms. This is obviously going to be within the Gryffindor boys' dormitory. You can see the Gryffindor hangings around the beds. This is going to be within the Ravenclaw common room. All of the Ravenclaw colours are visible, and you can also see the wings of the eagle up ahead, and as the camera moves forward you can see the stars on the ceiling. We then get a nice shot of the Slytherin common room. There isn't much to say about this, however the green light is because it's located under the Great Lake. I have scoured the shots of any lakes that we get and I cannot see any obvious location for this. We also get a shot of the Gryffindor common room, and you can see the circular hole behind the fat lady just to the left of this scene. We then get some nice shots of the Hufflepuff common room, and this is one of the common rooms that was not visited throughout the movies or the books, so I was very interested to see this. It looked absolutely perfect, and I really can't wait to explore this. Also, there is a notice board behind our character in this scene, so I wonder if there's going to be some sort of side missions that you can partake in by going to the notice board. So a lot of the interior shots of this castle are very difficult to place. As you can see from this one, there is lots of yellow around the walls, which made me think that it could possibly be near to the Hufflepuff common room. However, the Hufflepuff common room is supposed to be located near to the kitchen, and the windows here suggest that this is higher up in the castle. There appears to be the skeleton of an Erumpent down below, and there is multiple staircases leading off in different directions. The stained glass window that we get a slight glimpse of to the left of the screen here appears to be some sort of depiction of what looks like a Chinese-style dragon. I believe this scene is also near to the same location, as we can see more skeletons to the right hand side. This creature, I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it appears to be some sort of ostrich shape. When our character uses a spell on this portrait, it clearly creates a secret passage which will hopefully lead you to another location within the castle, which is very reminiscent of what we see within the books. Behind these secret passages there is a alcove with a green tinted symbol that appears to have some sort of circular pattern on it. Another interior shot, and this is the 7th floor corridor leading to the fat lady's portrait, which obviously leads to the Gryffindor common room. Continuing with the inside of the castle, we get a look at a location that I wish we had seen in the movies, and that is the kitchen area of Hogwarts. As you can see, there are several house elves busy at work creating food ready for the students. There's a giant pot in the background, which they obviously use for cooking, and I like the nice addition of the staircase leading to the top for them to add the ingredients. As you can see to the right hand side, there appears to be the long house tables, which is where they serve up the food before it is magically transported above them. And another interior shot is the Prefect Bathroom that we see Harry use within the story of the Goblet of Fire to figure out the clue for the eggs. You can see the mermaid on the wall, which helps him figure out that clue. This interior shot is to the top of a staircase, and if you look at the dome ceilings, it is very reminiscent of another location we have already seen, and that is going to be the Ravenclaw common room. I believe this is going to be just outside of Ravenclaw Tower. There is also another reason why I believe this. If you look to the statue to the left, I believe this is going to be a statue of Rowena Ravenclaw. You can see that she is holding a book, which is very fitting for the character whose house is all based around intelligence, and also around the top of her head I believe is the rendition for this game of the diadem. Also, for no other reason than I think they are stunning, I love the design of these windows. Now back to the outside of Hogwarts, we are looking at something outside of the battlements, but I believe this is going to be another location that we have not yet seen, because none of these battlements look similar to the ones that we saw in the original shot. In the background you can see what appears to be Hagrid's hut. It'll be interesting to see what this is used for in a time before Hagrid attending the school. This also looks to be a charms class, as you can see some of these students sat to the left of the classroom. It appears that this teacher doesn't stick to convention and takes these students outside for some of the lessons. We get a nice shot of the Quidditch pitch from this scene. You can see the battlements that we saw in the initial shot just behind this character, and then the Quidditch pitch directly behind that. You can see here the entrance to the Quidditch pitch for the students and players. And at the end of this scene, there appears to be some sort of wooden circle to the right hand side of the screen. I do not know what this is going to be, because if you look at the courtyard, there is nothing obvious to suggest what this is, so this is probably related specifically to this scene. Also, I think they have hidden a secret cave in this trailer. As you can see, the character gliding through this section here. It is dark as the character approaches and then turns lighter when the character goes over it and blocks it from view. I think the reason for this is because the character is then blocking the entrance to the cave, so it does not need to be blacked out. Now, I know this scene is not actually technically in Hogwarts, however I believe they are on their way to Hogwarts, and I think this is going to be the carriage that our character takes to Hogwarts itself. Now, it's interesting to see that Professor Fig is with him at this time. I have a few theories as to why he's there, but that will be covered in a further breakdown. As you can see behind this character here, there is a suitcase and what looks to be other luggage. This is reminiscent of what was piled up in the original trailer to the rear of the carriage. And also, if you look at the date on the newspaper that this character produces, it is the 1st of September, which is always the start date for Hogwarts. So I would suggest this is your character making its way to the school. And another random location within the school that we get a shot of is this fireplace. I believe this is going to be inside the school, because if you look above the fireplace, you can see each of the house crests. To the left of this fireplace, there is a Demigod statue that we see in the Fantastic Beasts series. Now, I believe this location is going to be the office of the potions teacher, and the reason I think that is because if you look to the right hand side of the scene here, there is a coat that looks very similar to the one that we see him earlier in the trailer. We also get this shot, which I believe is going to be the outside of the greenhouses. The walls along the side here look to be the same as the side walls of the greenhouse, but just from the outside. As you can see in the distance, the greenhouse seems to go off to the right, which would suggest that potentially this courtyard could be located somewhere here. Another interior location we get a nice glimpse at is the library, and what I guess is going to be the entrance to the restricted section, as the librarian does say that he has just come from there. So, continuing inside Hogwarts, we are now going to move into the classrooms themselves and see what secrets we can find from them here. The first classroom that we get is inside the Charms classroom. There are lots of spells located on the walls around this classroom, and I have covered them all in my initial breakdown. I'm hoping that because they are written on the walls, they are actually going to be in the game in some sense. We also get a look inside the greenhouses, and we can also see which specific greenhouse we are going to be having our first lesson in. As you can see on these doors, there is a 1 on the door to the left, and our character goes into the door with the number 2 above it. So we're going to be in greenhouse number 2 for this lesson. And as you can see, our character comes out onto what looks to be some sort of balcony, and then heads down the stairs into the classroom that we can see here. To the left, there looks to be some sort of a spiky plant, which I believe could be a venomous tentacula. To the right of the screen, you can also see some dirigible plums. These are mentioned in the Harry Potter books when the Golden Trio go to Luna's house in the Deathly Hallows. We also get a look at the Defense Against Dark Arts classroom. This has a very similar design to what we see in the movies, with the Defense Against Dark Arts teacher's office being up some stairs to the rear of the classroom. There's also a dragon skull suspended from the ceiling. It looks like it is going to be the same breed as the dragon that we do see in this trailer, as you can see from the positioning of the horns. This classroom is clearly the potions classroom because of the cauldrons that we see throughout the classroom, and also there is a depiction of a cauldron and some scales on the blackboard in this room. There is also some Latin writing written around the room. Unfortunately, zooming in on this in this trailer, I can still not make out exactly what the words are saying. When we get a look at this shot inside the potions classroom, we get a look at some of the ingredients that we will be using. There appears to be a bundle of knot grass, also what I believe to be porcupine quills. I have zoomed in on the book. Unfortunately, I cannot make out any of the writing, and also there is a bottle on the shelf here which has a label on it, but again I've zoomed in as far as I can and I cannot make out what this photo on the bottle is going to be. The only other ingredient that we get to see is hawk lump juice, which our character adds to the potion here. And the next classroom that we take a look at is what I believe are going to be the Transfiguration Classroom. The desks to the side of this room appear to be very similar to the desks that we see in the leaked footage that shows some transfiguration magic. There's also several animal cages dotted throughout the room, and we know that transfiguration does focus heavily on transfiguring animals into different objects. Also on the whiteboard there is what appears to be a teapot, and this, other than divination, is the only other classroom that we see in the Harry Potter series to specifically use a teapot. There appears to also be a board similar to the Charms classroom with several spells written on it, however they are not possible to be made out in this scene. There's also spells along at the top of the classroom, and some of these can be made out. I've noticed the spell Ridiculous, which is obviously used to banish boggarts, Protego, the shield charm, and Alohomora, which is the charm to open locked doors. The next classroom that we see is going to be the History of Magic classroom, and we can see Professor Binns is still teaching at this time, and he is also in his ghost form, so he has already previously died. Looking at this class, the students appear to be very bored still. There's also a giant glass window with a depiction of Merlin on it. This is obviously hinting to some of the side missions that our character can partake from the time when Merlin was at the school. And there was one more classroom hidden in the behind the scenes footage in a blink and you'll miss it moment, and that was this classroom here, and this looks to be the Divination Classroom. The furniture matches what we know the room to be from the Harry Potter series, and all of the tables seem to contain a crystal ball. Also there is a giant palm on the desk here and a drawing of the palm on the wall, which would suggest the palmistry readings. There's also this drawing on the wall which seems to hint at the inner eye. Be interesting to see what this classroom's like without Professor Trelawney in it. And the last location we have to take a look at within inside Hogwarts Castle is going to be the Room of Requirements. So let's take a look at this wide shot here, and there's a lot to break down. Hanging from the ceilings there appears to be red banners, and I believe this is going to be a choice as colour from which house you choose to be in. Straight ahead of us we can see the location that heads to what I've dubbed the Fantastic Beast location inside the Room of Requirements itself. And then we can also see several stations dotted around the ground floor, which is going to be used for us to catch up on our training in the lessons for certain things such as potions and herbology. The one thing I have noticed from this scene is to the top left and top right there also appears to be more rooms that lead off from this one, much similar to the Fantastic Beast room in the middle. I have a theory as to what these rooms are for, and that is based on the light from each room. If you look to the left, the light appears to be some sort of a dark light that is glowing out of it, and to the right there is a bright white light coming from it. I think this could be something to do with the morality system, and depending on which level your morality is, depending on where you can go and how much you can upgrade these rooms to the side, and these will obviously give you benefits and spells more favoured to the dark side on the left or the light side on the right. As a character enters this room, there is two statues either side. It looks like the one on the left is a Niffler. Now, as we see from this skill trees section, there is a section at the top called Owl Post, and I believe this is going to be based from the Roma requirements, because as you look to the right hand side here, there is a writing desk with an owl perched on this, and I believe this is going to be some form of in-game communication that you're going to be able to use from the Room of Requirements. On the left hand side you can see the Herbology section of the Room of Requirements, where you're able to grow plants, and these plants are able to help you out in the combat. It is worth noting, as we get a closer look at this, there is some Slytherin banners either side of this, and our character is still wearing the Gryffindor robes. This to me would potentially hint at the fact that maybe our Slytherin companion is going to be very good at herbology and is going to help us out with this lesson. We then see our character purchasing a T-shaped potion station inside the Room of Requirements, and the area around it has a lot of hidden details. As you can see here, there is a cabinet directly behind the potions table, and this cabinet seems to contain a crystal ball and several battle horns, and also what looks like some skulls. On the right hand side there is also a shelf containing more skulls and what looks to be some sort of sand timer, but behind that there is a wall straight out of the Nightmares of the Black House, as there appears to be house elf heads mounted on the wall. And just to top off this sinister scene, there appears to be some sort of what I would describe as a torture device directly behind the table. We also get a nice shot of when our character first enters the Room of Requirements, as we can see there is nothing else around him in this room, and it would appear that the Fantastic Beasts area is going to be one of the first areas that we unlock, as this is the first thing that we see growing. It also is interesting to note that these two trees seem to sprout up beside it. Take a look inside this location and we can see that we are able to buy and also rotate several objects that we wish to build. Starting off with a cottage. Also we can purchase a well, which I would presume is going to be used to water the beasts that we have in here. There is also an anvil with a hammer that is magically working away by itself. This is possibly going to be to craft things to look after the beasts inside. Also there is some form of bird feeder behind the anvil here. And as we leave Hogwarts through the gateway with the two winged boars either side, we move on to our next location, and that is of course the area of Hogsmeade. We get a nice shot of the Hogsmeade station here, and this is the track that the Hogwarts Express comes in on and the students will debark, ready for their first days in Hogwarts. We then get a very similar shot to what we got in the original trailer of us moving into Hogsmeade, and then a few more shots showing deeper into the village. Unfortunately, there are not many signs around this location for me to be able to decide which shops they are. There is a fireplace to the left of our character here, so this could be outside of the free broomsticks, but unfortunately there is nothing to confirm this theory. We also get a shot inside a few of the shops. We only have one confirmed location, and that is this potions shop, which is Pippin's Potions. The other two locations I believe are going to be Tomes and Scrolls, which is a specialist bookshop in Hogsmeade. And as we see the clothing shop here, I believe this is going to be Glad Rags Wizard Wear. In this scene here, we also get another shot of the entrance to Hogwarts, looking at it from the other direction. If you see at the far end of this shot, there is an archway, and this is the same archway that we enter into Hogsmeade. Just to confirm how close Hogsmeade is to Hogwarts in this game, you can see what looks to be Gryffindor Tower behind the character in the distance through the buildings of Hogsmeade. There's two shops visible in this scene, and the first one is Pottage's Cauldron shop, which you can see the cauldrons lined up here. And then as the camera pans around our character, you can see the Hogsmeade branch of Ollivanders behind him. The longest shot we get inside Hogsmeade is the shot with the Dark Wizard talking to Ranrock. Unfortunately, this looks to take place down a side alley, so there is not many features that I am able to pick out. However, in the background here, behind the Dark Wizard, it looks as though this is going to be the 3 broomsticks. There is one more confirmed shot in Hogsmeade, and that is this shot where we are speaking to a goblin in the Hog's Head pub. You can see the sign for the pub behind the goblin here. And the other shot, which isn't confirmed to be Hogsmeade, is the shot right at the beginning of the trailer with the troll busting through the wall. The buildings look very similar to that of Hogsmeade, and when the Dark Wizard is talking to Ranrock, you hear him talk about a distraction that our character has just taken out, and I believe that is going to be this troll here. One more location that could possibly be Hogsmeade is going to be the scene that we see with Nearly Headless Nick walking through a graveyard with our character. I believe this is going to be around the Halloween time, because it looks as though this could potentially be Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day party. And the only other time we see a graveyard is in some of the artwork that we get from behind the scenes, which looks to be in a similar location to that of the Shrieking Shack. It'd be very interesting to see if the Shrieking Shack has recently been derelict, and because Nearly Headless Nick is hosting his Death Day party there, this is where it starts to get the representation of being a haunted location. Now, we look at some of the combat scenes, and this seems to be the main location where all of our Dark Wizards are located, and I would just like to draw your attention to a few things here. We have banners on all of these pillars around the location. There's also a statue of a female figure with a hood over her, and there's also this mural on the floor. We get a better look of it later on in the trailer. Now, this particular area has green banners with what appears to be a dragon on them. However, later on we do also get a location with a similar green banner. However, this one appears to have a centaur on it. Perhaps this is different factions of dark wizards in the area. They have all turned up to the location to help out with the Goblin Rebellion, but there are different, potentially warring factions. Also, in most of these locations, you can see the statue of the hooded female, so I'm guessing that these locations are going to be very close to each other. In this shot here, we get a better glimpse of the mural on the floor, and you can see what appears to be the shape of a phoenix head. The background is very similar to the colours that we see in the banners up above, and also as this scene progresses, you can see the banner with the dragon, also what appears to be a banner with a phoenix, and potentially a banner with a snake below that. Perhaps these are the different factions, as well as the new one, which is the centaurs seen in this scene. The phoenix banners are also seen in some artwork here. And the next location that I want to cover is what I've dubbed the Goblin Workshop, and this is the area that we see our character enter into here. In the background there appears to be lots and lots of moving parts. There seems to be large tubs which I could imagine contain molten steel. We know that goblins make armour and all sorts of weapons, so I think this is going to be one of the locations that they do that. Also on the fence here behind our character is this symbol, and you can also see it in this scene here closer up. I believe this is going to be some sort of symbol that is imprinted on the armour to prove it is goblin made. You can also see water wheels down the bottom, which seems to be powering all of the machinery. This scene here is outside where I believe the entrance to the workshop is going to be. As you can see in the background, there is the water wheels that are seen inside this cave. So to me, that suggests this is possibly the entrance to the workshop. We also get another shot from the outside, and there seems to be chains and pulleys in the backgrounds, which to me suggests this could also be very near to the Goblin Workshop. We are also fighting goblins at this time. And the final location is one of the most intriguing to me, and that is the place that I've dubbed the Chamber of Mysteries. I believe this could potentially be the entrance to it, however, I believe there are going to be many dark caves around the area, so it may well not be. But when we get inside, we see this giant chamber with a massive statue, very reminiscent of the Chamber of Secrets. If you notice the floor, it seems to be blue with all of this silver patterning, and all of the doors around the chamber seem to be very tall and have this metal artwork along the top of them. There's also what appears to be some sort of water fountain in the middle of this circular area here. I don't know whether our character has to drink from these fountains to be able to progress further forward. This area appears to be very similar. The floor design matches what we see in the previous scene, and also the artwork above the doors also seem to match what we see in the giant statue chamber. There is also a weird circular symbol up above, which could give us some hint as to what this chamber is about. However, at this time I've not seen it anywhere else in the trailer. In the scene that we see Professor Fig fighting Ranrock, if you look at the design on the floor and the walls, it looks very similar to what we see in the Chamber of Mysteries. And if you look at this freeze frame here, there even appears to be one of the drinking fountains as the characters fly backwards. So perhaps this is going to take place there. This may be linked to the main secret of the whole game, and as to why Ranrock is after you and what he is looking for as a whole. Also, the design on the floor in the room where you fight the statues seems to be in the same location. So these are probably the guardians of whatever secret this chamber holds. And finally, there is a lot of locations that are unfortunately not able to pin down as to where they are. I will put them on the screen as I talk through some of them now. The background of this location makes me think of Gringotts with the chandelier that we see above them. We know that we go to Gringotts later on in the trailer because we see a character going on the roller coaster ride inside the bank. So perhaps this is how they get there. I believe this is going to be within the Chamber of Mysteries. However, I cannot confirm this at this time. The flooring is the same similar blue colour, and the artwork above each of these doorways matches the artwork at the top of the doorways that we see in the chamber, but it does not look exactly similar, so I've left this separate. During the character creation scene, the character is not wearing robes, so potentially this is going to be taking place in either Hogsmeade or potentially in Diagon Alley, and we are getting fitted for our robes at the time. A lot of the fight scenes are very generic. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pin down the locations. Some of them appear to be more close to Hogwarts, and some of them appear to be more in the wilderness. We also get this massive sequence with the Rebellio Charm being used on this bridge. It appears to be leading to some sort of tower in the background. This symbol looks very similar to the symbol that we see in the Chamber of Mysteries, so potentially this is a way of getting in there using our strange magic. And finally, let's take a look at the map that we get in the behind the scenes footage. Now, this is only a portion of the map that we get for the game, and we can tell that by the grid coordinates that we get across this map. I would imagine that the map is possibly going to be a 6x6 location just by looking at the numbers on this map. As you can see in the top corner, that is block 6-6, and it is going down numerically in the first number towards the left of the screen, and then it is going down numerically in the second number to the right of the screen. So it is safe to say that what we are seeing here is less than a quarter of the map. The only location that I've managed to possibly locate is this lake down to the bottom near the 5655 location, and that looks possibly to be the lake that could be near to the Goblin's Workshop, but this is not confirmed at this time. Looking at all the roads leading off to the right near the 6-4 and 5-4 location, I believe that Hogwarts Castle is probably going to be off in this direction, as all of the paths lead in this way. So one of them could potentially lead to the castle and the other could lead to Hogsmeade, but that is just speculation at this time. There are several similar symbols on this map. We have these tower-like symbols, these building symbols, and also these entrances. So this to me suggests that these are going to be small hamlets, points of interest, and entrances to caves. The terrain looks fantastic, it's very diverse, there is a good mix of mountainous areas, wooded areas and what looks like grassland, as well as the watery areas of the lakes and the rivers. When I first saw this map, I was blown away by the size of it, and then I realised that it actually is only a very small portion of the full map, and that blew my mind even more. There is so much to explore and see in this game. So to streamline this video, what I'm going to be doing is breaking it down into a few sections, and the first section is going to be the general gameplay, and that involves the travel and exploration and the spells that we can use during that. Also then look at the customization that we can have for our characters, and also the progression system that we've got for our character as we move through the game. And in the second part of this breakdown, we're then going to be looking at our talents and abilities and the combat itself. So when looking at the general gameplay, it would appear that exploration is going to be a large part of this game. And from the last video that I did, you can see that the map is going to be massive, and we are going to need to get around that to be able to explore it. So there are several forms of transport that we actually see in this trailer. And the first one that we're going to break down is going to be the Broom Flight. Now on the Q&A section of the Hogwarts Legacy website, it says the following: Broom Flight is a method of transport in Hogwarts Legacy, and there are also broom races. Players can take a flying class to master their broomstick flying skills. Now this opens a question as to whether we can buy new brooms or potentially upgrade the broom that we get. In the trailer it does appear to be travelling quite slowly, so upgrades might be able to increase the speed, and also taking part in this flying class and also the broom races might increase our flying skill and then increase our speed with it. Another method of transport that we see in the trailer is via animals, and again in the Q&A section of the website it says players can tame, mount and ride some magical beasts in Hogwarts Legacy. In the trailer we see our character riding a hippogriff. It'd be interesting to know if you can fly on other creatures such as the Thestrals that we see here, or even potentially the dragon that is dotted around the trailer. I'm also wondering if there is mounted ground travel. Potentially the hippogriff can travel on ground, or you may even be able to tame a graphorn or even a unicorn. Another form of transport that we can see in this game is these mirrors that our character seems to be able to manipulate using his special magic. It's yet to be seen whether these are some sort of teleportation device or whether they are actually just a device that our character can view events elsewhere through. Now we know in the Wizarding world there are several other forms of transport, such as the Floo network. Maybe the hamlets throughout the wider map have got fireplaces that you can fast travel to. There are also port keys that could be used to bring you to specific locations. And the only other way obviously is apparition. It's yet to be seen whether we have this ability in the game. There is some form of apparition in the combat, but we'll get to that later on in this breakdown. And the only other possible option that I wanted to bring up is potentially swimming as a mode of transport. There's lots of watery locations, including the Prefix Bathroom, that we see. And it'd be interesting to see if we can explore them and maybe even take some gillyweed and explore the depths of the lake. And finally, the only other way to travel, which is probably what I will be doing mostly, is going to be on foot, so that I can experience this game in its full detail. When on foot, obviously you are going to be able to find secrets a lot more easily, and also you'll be able to find the shortcuts that can help us get around a bit faster, but these are likely going to require a spell or a password to get through. So while on the subject of spells that we can use during the general exploration, there is a few that we see in this trailer. The first one we see used a couple of times is the Accio spell, and that is used in the Goblin Workshop to pull the platform that our character stood on towards them, and it was also used to open up this secret passageway in this portrait. It'd be interesting to know whether this passageway is actually some form of teleportation that will take us to a faraway part of the castle, or whether it is actually just a cut through the wall that is specifically there. Another spell that we see our character use in the general exploration is going to be the Lumos Spell. We can see in the first scene of the trailer that our character uses it as a form of illumination in dark areas, but also it could potentially be used to reveal secret areas behind Devil's Snare, as seen in this cave here. Other possible spells that we see written on the boards around the games that could be used in exploration are things such as Glissio, which could be used on staircases to perhaps allow our character to slide down them. Incendio to remove plants or wooden structures blocking entrances to caves or secret locations. Also in previous games we've seen the Wingardium Leviosa charm used to create platforms, and we could also use potentially spells like Bombarda or Repulso to open damaged walls into secret tomb locations. Another spell that we definitely use during the exploration is going to be the Rebellio Charm, and it seems to reveal hidden objects and places that we might be able to potentially loot. In this courtyard scene here, you can see our character using the Rebellio Charm to find this secret, and in the background through the walls our character can see chests hidden away, highlighted in yellow. We know that portraits throughout Hogwarts require password, and we can see that there is collectibles throughout the game, so potentially some of these collectibles are going to be passwords or solutions to riddles that might be able to unlock secret locations. Moving on to the next section, and that is going to be the character customization. And going back again to the Q&A section on the website, it says players can create the witch or wizard they want to be in Hogwarts Legacy. They can customize their character at the onset of their adventure. As they progress, they'll also be able to develop their own special combat style. Now let's take a quick look at the customization screen, and you appear to be able to choose your appearance to be that similar to a male or female, and you also have some in-depth changes that you can make. You can change your character's skin tone, their hairstyle and hair colour. It also appears that you can change certain features of the character's face, such as their chin and nose. You can also potentially select scars and special features on your character's face, as you can see on the male character here. Now I believe this is possibly going to take place in Diagon Alley, and I have a few reasons to suggest this. As you can see in this Gringotts scene, we are wearing the same clothing that we are wearing in the customization screen, and also in the scene where our character is flying towards Hogwarts with Professor Fig. Professor Fig is also seen in this Gringotts scene. This to me says that we are in Diagon Alley at the beginning of the game, and we will be able to customize our character, pick out our wand, and also collect our belongings ready for our time at Hogwarts. And obviously when we get to Hogwarts, another customization point is going to be the sorting ceremony, and in the Q&A section on the website it says players can choose their Hogwarts house at the start of Hogwarts Legacy. I think this is great because obviously I identify as a Ravenclaw from taking the Pottermore quiz, and I have done for a very long time, so the fact that I can choose that house is very good for me. However, I would like to see if there is a bonus feature for people who do not want to choose their house, and if there is a similar thing to the Pottermore quiz in the game that will then be able to give you a house based on the answers that you do. So throughout the game also it looks as though we can go to clothing shops and adjust our look with different items of clothing, and we can also adjust those items of clothing for different perks and benefits throughout the game. But we'll look at that in the next section, which is going to be the progression system. So in this scene here you can see that we have the progression system, and there are 5 specific categories. So moving from left to right, we do not actually know what these 2 left ones are, as it does not highlight them in the footage. They possibly could be related to the exploration or the special abilities that our character has. However, this is just a guess at this time. And the first one we do get a look at is this one in the middle, and this is going to be our core magic. I believe that upgrades in this section will be able to improve our overall effectiveness of spells, and also maybe increase our health. The next section that we look at is the stealth section, and I believe upgrades to this are going to boost how long the disillusionment charm lasts, and also potentially the knockout abilities that we see our character using, and maybe we could also have some sort of knockout combinations where we can attack more than one character at a time. And the last section that we've got is the room of requirement and upgrades that we can receive to that. I believe that the upgrades to the room requirements is going to improve the effectiveness that we have when making potions, growing plants, and caring for the creatures inside. An example of this is the T-shaped potion stand. As you can see here, it looks as though we are able to make 3 potions at a time. Maybe this is the 3rd level of progression for the potion stand, and we start off with a single or double potion stand to start off with, and the more we buy means the more potions that we can make as we progress. Our character progression is based around 3 forms of currency. The first form of currency that I'm going to talk about is going to be experience, which then levels up our character. Each level then appears to give our character a talent point to spend in the talents menu that we have just gone through. This will then in turn make our character stronger. As you can see in this scene, our character is level 12 and we have spent 15 points at the bottom. So I'm guessing potentially we start with 3 points at the beginning of the game and then we get 1 point per level. The second form of currency that we seem to be able to collect throughout the game is going to be Moonstone, and this is used within the Room of Requirement to purchase upgrades and also to purchase items within the Vivarium. And the third currency in the game is actual currency, and that is the money within the Wizarding World. In the potion shop, you can see the symbol at the top here for galleons, sickles and knuts, and these can be used to purchase upgrades and ingredients in the shop. And when looking at the upgrades we have for our clothing, we can purchase 3 things, and that is traits, upgrades and appearance. I believe that traits will likely be things such as fire or flinch resistance, so if you are hit with a fire spell it does less tick damage over time, and if you are hit with a flinch spell such as Petrificus Totalis you will be frozen for less time with higher traits. I think the upgrades will upgrade the base stats for you such as health, strength and defense. And appearance obviously changes the way the clothing looks. I'm hoping that means that on each piece of clothing we are able to change its colour, maybe to match our house colours, and if they've gone even further we could potentially pick our own colour that we want them to be. And I find that really interesting because I may be able to run around in my channel colours. So I think it is likely we are going to get our experience currency from missions, side missions and finding secrets throughout the game. We'll likely get gold again for completing missions and also looting downed enemies and chests throughout the map. And the Moonstone I think will likely be found in these glowing fountains. So moving on into the combat section of this breakdown, and we are going to be looking initially at the talents and abilities. So the most likely way that we will learn our talents and abilities is through lessons in the school. In the Q&A of the website it says players will attend classes such as Charms, Defense Against Dark Arts, Herbology and Potions, where they will meet their professors, learn to cast spells, grow magical plants and brew potions and more. Now we do get a look how some of this works, especially in the potions class. We can see that we have lots of steps to make the potions, and I think this will only be during the lessons when we are first learning the potions. When we are in the Room of Requirement and are brewing further potions to help us in our combat, I believe you will be given the chance to do a quick brew option. However, I think you may be able to do the full steps like chopping ingredients and stirring the potions for a boost. An example of a boost would be if you are taking this potion which appears to add defense to your character. If you decide to do a quick brew, the boost will last for maybe 30 seconds. However, if you decide to do the full steps of making the potion, it will last 1 minute 30 seconds. I think this will be similar to plants. There will probably be steps that you have to take during your lessons in the first time in looking after them that will then potentially be able to be skipped in the Room of Requirements, but again it will sacrifice maybe the length of time they fight for you for, or maybe the health that the plants have in combat. Also for noting that there appears to be a brew or grow time when we are in the Room of Requirements. This is quite nice because it's true to game, because obviously potions take a certain amount of time to brew and plants obviously take a certain amount of time to grow, and it also stops us from being able to overuse the powers and just go into combat with hundreds of potions. Obviously we know that plants can be used in combat as assistants, and potentially they might even be able to be used in a finisher style type move when you look at how this Mandrake seems to work here. So finally we're getting to the most anticipated part of this trailer breakdown, and that is going to be the combat section. So I believe by going through this frame by frame and looking at it in such in-depth detail, I have figured out how the combat is going to work. I believe you're going to have a standard attack button which is going to be based around Stupefy, the stunning spell. As you can see here, this works as a standard attack and can be used in certain combos as seen here. Then looking at the Q&A section, it does say mixing and matching dozens of spells in Hogwarts Legacy will let players define their combat style on the path to becoming the ultimate duelist. I believe once you've hit an enemy with a few stunning spells, you can then target them with stronger spells that potentially can target specific weaknesses. As you can see in this trailer, we use the Incendio Charm on the inferior, which we know are weak to light and warmth. The main combinations of these stronger spells we see seem to start with either Accio or Wingardium Leviosa, causing the enemy to rise into the air and be in a vulnerable state. When they are in this vulnerable state, you can then target them with further stronger spells. Also, you have a block mechanic that we can see used in 3 different ways in this trailer. The first way is to just simply block spells, and the spell seems to just dissipate in front of you. The second way is to deflect spells, as we can see here. It's interesting to see whether we can direct the deflection, or whether it is just random, and also if it can actually deflect a spell into another enemy. And the third way, I believe, is going to start a counterattack, and this would be if you time the block perfectly. A counterattack then can instantly move our character into using these stronger spells. Taking all of what we've just seen, I believe then this leads into the finishers and special magic that we see. If you string together a string of stronger attacks and also use the block ability perfectly, you will then not take damage for a certain amount of time, and this will start a combination streak. I think then if you get to a combo streak of potentially 10 or 15, you will then have the ability to be able to use a finishing move. I think a finishing move will be an easy way to defeat one single weaker enemy, or potentially a weakened stronger enemy, without having to continually fight them. Also, over time, I think you will fill up a special bar which will then release the magic that our teachers cannot understand, and this will do a very high damage to one stronger enemy, or maybe high damage to lots of weaker enemies. So in this trailer we do get a look at several spells and actually hear our character saying the name of a lot of them, and I will break them down here. So as mentioned above, we get the Shield Charm, and this is used to block or counter. We also get a look at the stunning spell Superfy. This starts off with a red circle appearing at your wand and a red bolt of magic firing towards the enemy. As it hits, another red circle appears at the enemy. We also see Defindo, and the animation for this is a red ball which then explodes in a red explosion, causing the enemy to fly to the floor. We see Incendio. This starts off with red flames firing out of your wand and includes a red explosion at the enemies, and you can also see a heat distortion effect. This appears to be an area effect attack. As you can see, you hit this inferior eye here, but the inferior eye next to it also has some tick damage from flames around it. Another spell we see is Wingardium Leviosa. This fires a spiral of blue light, which looks a bit like a swish and flick, and surrounds the enemy, causing them to rise up into the air. We also see Expelliarmus here, and this is a golden beam with a white flash. A white trail then flies from the enemy's weapon, which flies out of their hands up into the air. And also for noting, you see the R1 prompt appearing at the top of the screen next to this enemy's weapon. And this is the Pugno Charm, which fires projectiles at enemies. We can see this throughout most of the trailer, and this is anything that is around the map. You can pick up stones and explosive barrels and fire them at enemies. We also see Immobus, which is the freezing charm. This appears as a white circle and fires some sort of frosty smoke towards the enemy. It freezes them on impact and also has a frost effect across their skin. We see the Accio Charm used loads throughout this trailer, and that is a white swirl which then wraps itself around an enemy, pulling them towards you. We also see the Repulso Charm, which is a blue flash that then sends an enemy flying away and leaves some smoke. And one more spell that we get in this trailer is obviously the Killing Curse, Advada Kedavra. You can see it in this scene here, and it starts off with a green glow around the tip of your wand, and as you send the spell forward, it does a full green bolt from the tip of your wand to your target, and then there is a concussive blast that comes out, as well as a green circle at the point of contact with the enemy. There's also two abilities I'm not quite sure what they are. There's this cutting spell that seems to break through this enemy's shield. Potentially this is Relatio. There's also this spell that rises enemies into the air, similar to Wingardium Leviosa, but it spins them around, and maybe this is the Mobilio Corpus spell. I also believe that spells will be able to be upgraded as your player gets stronger. As you can see in this scene here, our character uses the Incendio Charm, which initially looks the same as we've seen it throughout the rest of the trailer, but then there is a giant area of effect ripple that fires out on the floor and hits all enemies close by. Be interesting to see what other versions of spells we get as we get more powerful. We also have a roll ability to be able to dodge attacks, and this apparition type move, I don't know if this is a progression of the roll ability or a separate ability, but this is also used to dodge attacks or potentially close down the gap between us and the enemy. We know that the enemies can use attacks as well, and we see a couple of them in the trailer. We start off with physical attacks as seen here by this troll and also some of the goblins. It also says in the trailer they can use blasting curses, stunning spells, enchanted weaponry and more. We also see our character appear to get hit with the Wingardium Leviosa charm and also this Prefix Totalis charm. This is the only time we see it in the trailer, and it appears as a white beam that connects from the wand to our character. Our arms then snap down to our sides and you see light ripple down our character, showing the bindings around them. It appears as though we highlight enemies that we want to target. I don't know whether this is just going to be for the PlayStation or console version of the game as a form of aim assist. It'd be interesting to see if I can manually aim when playing this game on the PC. I will be playing the game on the PC and the PlayStation, so it'd be interesting to see if there is a difference with the aiming styles. Some extra points of the combat that we see is there are potentially quick time events. As we can see our spells connecting here, this could be a scene where you have to button mash to move the spell closer to the enemy's wand. We also do seem to have some of our allies with us. In the Q&A it says, some students at Hogwarts will become friends. As players grow these relationships, these schoolmates will become companions who can accompany players on their journey. Now it's interesting to say that some students, and it may not just be the 3 that we've seen, potentially there are going to be more companions that we see throughout the game, because there is an absence of a Ravenclaw companion. We see that our allies do help us in combat, and we can see them casting spells in these scenes here. So finally, one last thing in the Q&A, it does say that Hogwarts Legacy is a single player experience and does not have online or co-op gameplay. However, on some of the game cases that we have got leaked, it does say that online is required for certain elements of the gameplay. I think potentially this could be similar to what we see in some of the Assassin's Creed games, where you can share resources with your friends, or potentially there could be a photo mode and you could take photos of a school and share them online. So the first group of people we're going to be looking into in regards to the characters is going to be the teachers. Now we have had a few leaked names for this game, and I will get to them as we move through who the teachers are. And the first teacher we're going to cover, I believe, is going to be one of the leaked names. So let's start off with the lessons that we definitely know we attend, and that is going to start off with Herbology, and that is this teacher here. In my initial trailer I mentioned the fact that she had red hair, and I wondered if she had any hand-me-down robes, so possibly she could be related to the Weasleys or the Pruitt family. However, we have been given a leaked name, and that is Helen Fisselwood, and we know that in the Harry Potter universe they do like to give people names that relate to something about them in their story, such as Remus Lupin or Sirius Black. So Helen Fisselwood being the teacher of Herbology does match very much. We don't get much more information about her, however she is wearing green and yellow, which obviously link to 2 different houses, so potentially she could be linked to Hufflepuff or linked to Slytherin house itself. I think it's more likely going to be Hufflepuff because we do have another character later on that is very highly linked to Slytherin. The next teacher that we take a look at is going to be the Charms teacher, and unfortunately I do not know the name of this character. He is wearing purple robes, and the only other character we know to wear robes of this style is actually Gilderoy Lockhart, so potentially he is going to be linked to Ravenclaw. I really like the look of this character. He is very charismatic and it seems like a very good teacher, and I would enjoy being in his lessons. A lot of people have mentioned these squiggles on his top, potentially relating to a snake, so he could be linked to Slytherin. However, I believe they are just designs, as I do not see a snake head on them. We also get a look at this teacher here. She's clearly teaching in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, as she is in the Defense Against Dark Arts classroom that we see from the movies. However, we do not get much more information about her. She is wearing a blue robe, so possibly a link to Ravenclaw. And one teacher we get returning from the Harry Potter series is obviously the History and Magic teacher, Professor Binns. He died one day during school and got up as a ghost and just continued teaching, so it's good to know that this was before when this game is set. And the next teacher we're going to look at is actually the potions teacher, and there's been a lot of speculation that I've seen online as to who this is. I mentioned that he reminded me of Mad-Eye Moody, and that was probably the Limp that did that. There's also some speculation that he looks like he could be a member of the Black family. However, I believe he is going to be another teacher that we know taught at Hogwarts and also went on to be a head teacher. And I think that he is going to potentially be Brutus Scrimgeour, and he is related, obviously, to Rufus Scrimgeour that we know from the Harry Potter series. The things that we do know about Brutus is that he was a very prolific Quidditch fan, and he also was a teacher at Hogwarts and served as headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry at some point, but we do not know the date that this happened. However, I think if this is him, we can actually plot out the head teachers from this game all the way up into modern day. But before we do that, we will cover one more teacher that we do get a clip of in the gameplay, and that is the flying teacher. Unfortunately, we do not get a lot of information about her other than this scene. She does not have any specific things on her robes to suggest what house she relates to, but she will be involved in teaching us flying and hopefully Quidditch in the game. So now we're going to look in the Great Hall, and we actually see 3 more teachers in this scene, and I think we can deduce who all of them are going to be. So I want to start with this teacher, and this is the teacher that we saw in the first trailer during the sorting ceremony, putting the hat on our head. Now, I believe this person is going to be Phineas Nigellus Black, and I believe that for 2 reasons. In the Harry Potter series, when Harry looks at the portrait of him in the head teacher's office, he's described with black hair, dark eyes, a pointed beard, and thin eyebrows. He is depicted in the portrait wearing the green and silver colours associated with the Slytherin house. I think that he teaches Transfiguration because that is one of the only classes that we don't have confirmed for, and I think he's going to be teaching one of the bigger classes. We also know that at some point he does take on the role of headmaster, so the second reason I believe this is going to be him is because he is fulfilling the role that McGonagall did in the movies. Now that leads the question if he is in the role of deputy head, who is actually going to be the head teacher. And I believe it is going to be this teacher here who is placing the hat onto our character's head. It is widely speculated that the teacher that Phineas precedes as head was Euphrasia Mole. Unfortunately, we do not have a physical description of her, but we do know that she was in place as the head in 1876, which could lead perfectly to this time frame. If that's the case, then potentially we do know one other character that might be in this game, and that is the caretaker, Chorus Carp. In 1876, Carp devised an elaborate trap to remove Peeves the poltergeist from the castle. It failed and ended up with Peeves firing weapons randomly at students and threatening them with death. It was the head teacher Mould who then stopped Peeves from doing this, and it made him sign a contract that included giving him a new hat so that he would surrender the weapons. As you can see in this scene of Peeves, he seems to be supporting a very nice new hat. So potentially that means that the head teacher we see in this story is going to be Euphrasia Mole, with Phineas Nigellus Black as her deputy. So that means that if Mole is currently the teacher with Phineas as her deputy, we know that at some point he does take over and become head, potentially during the story that we get to live in this game. He then dies in 1925, which would then perfectly lead up to the potions teacher Brutus Scrimgeour taking over from him then and serving as headmaster until the 1940s, which is when Armando Dippet takes over prior to Dumbledore. If this is the case, we know that Phineas was hated by most of the students, and there is a prospect of Phineas being the head teacher with this character here, Scrimgeour, being his deputy, and it does not sound like a fun time to be at Hogwarts. Finally, we do get to see one more teacher at the head table in the Great Hall, and I'm certain I know who this is. And this is another leaked name that we got. If you look at this character's clothing, it looks similar to one teacher we know from the time that Harry was at school. And this is because I believe the teacher teaches the same lesson and is also the great-great-grandmother of the teacher that taught Harry. This, I believe, is going to be Cassandra Mason, who will later go on to marry someone by the name of Trelawney. The reason why Trelawney got the job during Harry's time is because she was the ancestor of the celebrated seer Cassandra Trelawney. So maybe while we're at school, this legendary seer will help us through our journey by seeing what is ahead. And the last teacher that we know through this story is Professor Fig. We don't get told exactly what lesson he teaches, but I do believe I know which lesson it could be. I believe it's going to be Ancient Rune. We see him with our character a lot through some of the tomb explorations, and I think that him knowing ancient runes very well would benefit our character and help him understand his ancient magic. It is possible that he may be linked to our character in some other way, as he seems to be with him in Diagon Alley and also on his way to school, so he could be some sort of family member. But again, we do see Hagrid do this for Harry, so potentially it is just a case that he has been allocated the job. We do obviously not see a few teachers. One of the main ones is obviously the Care of Magical Creatures teacher, but hopefully we'll find that out in later trailers. Moving on to other characters then, let's have a look at our companions. The first one we'll have a look at is Natsai Onai. She is a Gryffindor and she is fighting injustice that she sees. So potentially this is the injustice to do with the Goblin Rebellion, and she believes that goblins should be allowed the same rights as wizards and also be given wands. So this could be a story arc if you are friends with her that you actually support the rebellion, and if you are friends with another character you go against the rebellion. Being an interesting take on this sort of game. The second companion we see is Poppy Sweeting. She is a Hufflepuff and she is very much into animals and reminds me so much of Newt. However, unfortunately we do not get much more detail about her other than this. And the third companion, who for me is the most interesting, is going to be Sebastian Sallow. He is a very charismatic Slytherin and he has about as much interest in the rules as Harry and Ron did during their time at the school. We also know that his family potentially have a blood curse. This character here, I believe, is who the curse is based around, and this is possibly his sister, but I'm not sure on that. And I think this character is like to be a Maledictus and have a blood curse, very similar to the character that we see of Nagini in the Fantastic Beasts movies. We know that he's trying to give her Shrivel Fig, and this is mainly used in the shrinking potion that we see in the Harry Potter books. And this made Trevor go back to a tadpole form, which would then make sense why he's trying to give it to his Maledictus sister to try and return her back to her human form. Obviously, I don't think this is likely to work, as this character here, potentially his father, tells him. Now, we do actually know of one other Maledictus who has a blood curse in the Harry Potter stories, and that is Astoria Greengrass, who goes on to marry Draco Malfoy, and she later dies of the blood curse. So it is possible that this female character here is related to the Greengrass family and carries that blood curse through to her ancestors, so potentially she does go on to marry a Greengrass. So outside of Hogwarts, we do get two main characters, and we will start off with this Dark Wizard that we see here. He is the leader of his cult of Dark Wizards, and we've been given the name of Victor Rookwood. So he is possibly related to Augustus Rookwood, who later becomes a Death Eater. Unfortunately, we do not have much more details around him. And then finally, we will take a look at Ranrock, who is the leader of this Goblin Rebellion. He hates wizards in every sense, even though he does team up with them, but he is also very skilled in goblin magic to the point that he can contend with wand-wielding wizards and witches in magical confrontation. At this time, that is all that we know about his character. So now let's take a look at the storylines that run through this game. And the main storyline is going to obviously be based around these Goblin Rebellions. Goblin Rebellions are taught in History of Magic and happen quite a lot throughout history. We know that other than this one, there have been ones in the 18th century, in 1752 and in 1612. The 1612 one was also based in the Hogwarts area, as the Hogshead and the Three Broomsticks were headquarters for the wizards. Normally these are based around the fact that goblins want to have wands, but possibly Ranrock has seen the ancient magic that our character wields, so potentially he now wants to access that magic instead. The second main storyline is obviously going to be based around this magic and you trying to decipher why you have it and how you've got it and where it comes from, and this is going to be some of the stories that you're going to be embarked on, I think, with Professor Fig. And the other main thing that we want to be doing in this game is learning and just taking in Hogwarts life. Obviously, this is what I'm going to be spending most of my time doing and ignoring the other main storylines completely. And some side storylines that we do know about is the Merlin Secrets, and this is possibly linked to the Chamber of Mysteries. I believe it's going to be a side quest that you can follow, find secrets about, and potentially unlock some clothing or some form of magical artifact as you go on. And the final storyline mark is also these corrupted animals. Now, it is unknown at this time if this is a completely separate side story or if this is going to be linked to your mysterious magic, or perhaps the fact that the goblins are corrupting these creatures in their attempts to fight the wizards. In the Q&A section of the Hogwarts Legacy website, they state these three following statements about the storyline. It is set in the 1800s wizarding world. The story has players experience life as a student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry like never before, as they live the unwritten and embark on a dangerous journey to uncover the hidden truth of the wizarding world. They also say players will experience life as a student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the 1800s as they embark on a dangerous journey to uncover a hidden truth of the wizarding world. And finally, they say the wizarding world is fraught with dangers, including creatures corrupted by a magical force, sinister witches and wizards, as well as a possible mountain goblin rebellion. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of information about exactly how the story is going to play out and why our character is late to school. I believe potentially his family were homeschooling him and he was looking into some sort of ancient magic. Maybe his parents worked for Gringotts and were curse breakers, and this is how he's come across the ancient magic and why Ranrock would know who he is. His parents have potentially died, meaning he now needs to attend Hogwarts, and he is now attending Hogwarts at the height of this new rebellion led by Ranrock about chasing him down for his magical power, and he has to understand the power that he now wields. That is pure speculation, but that is my theory about what this game is going to be about. So there you have it, that was my full breakdown, all of the parts put together. I really hope you enjoyed watching that, and thank you so much, because I know that was quite a long video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give this video a like if you did enjoy it, and let me know in the comments if I missed anything or any of your thoughts on this game. I do reply to everyone. But that is it for this long video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. And until then, mischief managed.